I don't think
So I think have subject matters that you've had experience with in the workplace and how it's affected the workplace. I think that's the idea. So if anybody wants to choose one of those 5 issues.
This looked like a fairly simple discussion, right? We're just talking about personal experiences with those things.
Yeah, just personal. And if you don't have a personal experience in one of these areas, how it would impact the workplace, address it as a manager. So does anybody have feelings about any of those? You jump in. Anybody want substance abuse, for example? I don't some family issues. Are you volunteering, Angela?
Oh, no. The only one the work-home balance is the only one that I really have seen like a really big issue on. The others are I really don't have a ton of experience on. So.
All right, so Angela, you can be work-home balance. Anybody want?
I guess I'll take the
family.
Substance abuse. I don't know.
You'll take substance abuse. Okay.
Please tell me you don't have personal experience on that.
No.
In the workplace, not necessarily his own.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know anything about any of these. I have not been in the workforce in 25 years, so.
Oh, you lucky girl.
I can talk about my kids all day, but I don't know. I mean, what do you want me to talk about?
I don't know. If you want to pick one, I think we could probably divorce and family issues. I've seen that in the workplace and how employees. You want to take same-sex relationships or workplace dating?
Sure.
Or do you want to take the other one? I'll trade you.
No, I'm good with either one of those.
Which one?
I'll say what I think about them.
Okay. All right. So, Angela, do you want to start us off? Or no, it was Benjamin who had substance abuse, right?
Yep.
Yeah. What are we looking for? Like, if we've had experience, or
if you've had, if you've seen it impact the workplace, or how you think it would impact the workplace, and how you could address it as, from a business
perspective.
You still got to run your business.
Yeah. Of course, I don't have a personal experience. I might have seen a case at work. I don't know if it really was a case. I mean, there was a fellow who made a couple mistakes with just coordinating the schedule, which kind of seemed kind of minor, but it was a car dealership, so sometimes that can offend people. But I don't know if he was drinking at the job or not, but they found out there's beer cans in the back of his vehicle, and they might have let him go at one point, or that might have been a notch against him, and I don't really know the specifics, but I think any kind of lifestyle or anything you do that could be harmful to yourself can kind of negatively, affect how you're seen at work. I mean, even if something's legal like dip, I mean, tons of people do that in the South, where I live, and it's disgusting, and it can affect, how they're perceived, and usually comes with a lifestyle, and I hate to say that they're stereotypes, but we kind of get into that realm with perception, and I guess, customer relationships there. So I guess that's one thing we could talk about.
Well, so I did have an experience with this. now that you're talking about the alcohol thing, I didn't think about that.
Okay.
One of my employees, he was a basketball referee and a baseball umpire, and his personality changed, and so he became very combative in situations. Like his temper got a lot. He was not as even tempered as he had been. Come to find out, I don't know what drugs he was doing, but alcohol was an issue. I actually had to get rid of him, because that is not a place where we can have somebody who's not in full control of their faculties. So, is that weird? Sorry, I remember that now.
Yeah.
My husband, when he was in college, he worked for a restaurant who the manager was from the till and using it to buy drugs. And it created enormous chaos in the restaurant, just because his erratic behavior and demands that he would make on everyone. But it turned out that the company came in and they came in and we knew and made it all make sense what was going on with him. But yeah, he was pretty erratic. And I mean, it's pretty clear when someone is with these behaviors. Just there's a real tendency, I think, now to recreational use.
Yeah.
How does that impact the workplace?
I haven't had to deal with that with employees. I live in Utah. That's not become a big issue here yet.
Yeah. Hopefully one won't.
Yeah. Well, everything comes here eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking about just loss of productivity and,
yeah,
just attention to detail and showing up on time, things like that.
I think you just have to, remind people kind of consistently, and sometimes how we communicate that might change. This is more of an open discussion, so I'm trying to think of things. I know e-cigarettes are becoming more popular, and they are down here. And I have seen people where I was working, and even on the job, it looks like they're smoking. When they, I don't know what you call it, blow that gas or whatever it is. And it doesn't seem to really affect people, but it can seem rude and it can be off-putting. So
I think in different states have adopted different laws. Utah has adopted that e-cigarettes are treated the same as regular cigarettes. So if it's a no smoking in public parks, then even e-cigarettes are not allowed. And it's been really hard to enforce that at our baseball parks and whatever, because people see it as something different, but in the state of Utah, it is not.
Mm-hmm. I should see Mississippi, like how it views that. I'll have to look into that.
The only experience I have with this one. Oh, sorry. I was going to say the only experience that I've had is that my husband and I owned a security company for about 15 years and sold it, and he's moved on. But we had to drug test our employees, and I didn't like I said, I wasn't involved. I was raising my kids and he was working, but I remember it being stressful. I remember it being hard as an employer to have to be responsible for drug testing and making sure that if there was a positive, that he had to follow through with that. He let a few people go because of it. I know it was it's just part of doing business. So,
right.
That's my contribution.
Well, that's an excellent one because it goes right into what I was going to ask. What do you do when you find that there is some instance of substance abuse? Clearly in a position where I can understand as a security guard, they need to be pretty responsible and they're often working alone and grounds for immediate termination. Do you think that is in every case?
Yeah, I don't know if it's zero tolerance in every case, but I know it was for us.
It was for me too. When I had that official that was, intoxicated on the job, it was zero tolerance. He's done.
Oh yeah.
I didn't use him again ever.
One of the things about the place I work for is, and this is about smoking, so it's not really the same issue, but they have like a program to encourage people to quit where they get a boner not smoking in 2 years, still not smoking, pay for their, like if they want to use the patch or something like that, the doctors will pay for it.
Yeah.
Because it does improve productivity at the office. If people don't have to go take smoke breaks, it just improves things. So it's like, hey, I can work in here
that too, and I'm still not smoking. A couple of the guys in the office that were smoking, he offered them a pay raise if they'd quit, and neither one of them could do it. So I know it would definitely increase productivity because those smoke breaks tend to take longer than you think it will.
And they're more frequent as well, usually.
Yeah. So what do you think about setting something similar substance abuse issues? That's something that could be effective, or?
I think you have to take into account whether they were doing on the job or if it's just something they're doing at home on the weekends. If it affects their job, I do think that there are some things that can be mediated, but it is hard. Like you were saying, even with a bonus or some kind of a reward, they're not always able to kick that habit. That's really tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with drugs, it might even be like if you were going to do some kind of incentive, it would need to be through a certified or licensed company that could help them. Because just kicking a drug would be really hard. I don't. Well, it seems like it would just an incentive.
I would think so too. I think you almost have to do.
Yeah.
Not just that, but I think they can hide a drug habit, and so I think it would require actual testing by a lab to show that they're being sincere about it.
And I know some people try to hide it. I've worked around people, and I know that they were doing at least marijuana, and they would get it out of their system, before a test periodically would come. And I don't know, that's a tough decision to make as a manager, that if you take into account the hearsay or the conversations, people have around you, like their lifestyle. But I think I would, because it reflects on their attitude and how they work. And there's all kinds of studies on it.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, how does that affect workers in like Colorado where marijuana is legal? Is it still not legal to use it at work? Are they allowed to?
I don't think it's legal to use it at work, and I guess it would depend. I mean, can you imagine a teacher going to school high? I mean, that would just not be tolerated, you know?
Right. So I wonder how they do. Like, is it still?
I think it would be like alcohol. Alcohol, even though it's legal,
you can use it recreationally.
Yeah, it still couldn't be. It's still not to be used when you're on the job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think let's move on and let's talk about divorce and family issues. I chose this one. One of my coworkers, it's not so much divorce, but she has frequent relationship issues. And I mean, to the point where she just, like, she broke up with a guy and she missed work for almost 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. So depressed that she couldn't get herself out of bed. And now clearly she has some other depression issues.
Oh.
It was kind of like, you don't even have to this guy, you know, what's going on here? But emotionally invested that it was really tough for her. And I know when she came back, had less patience. She had mistakes because clearly she wasn't focusing on what she was doing. You know, it just, and I know my own, with my kids, I have one kid who deciding whether or not he wants to be a high school student right now. And I'm I think we're on a good track with him, but it took a lot of time away from, you know, where I just had to leave some days, just go deal with situations as they arose. I was grateful for coworkers and my employers who were the situation, but I mean, it's certainly, I can see how these issues, because they're so dear to your heart, when you're having problems in those areas, they just, work seems to take, should, it's not the most important thing, but you still have to keep your job.
Yeah.
So most of us do anyway. About that, what would you do as a manager if you had an employee like that? I think it would, one of the things it talked about in that article, which I thought instinct, but I thought was actually pretty smart, was the office counselor yourself. You know, and it would be really easy to get drawn into that role. Still have to maintain your role as the manager. And so it's important to have somebody you can refer people to. I think, especially the larger the company.
I would think that in any business, there should be a place for compassion and a place for people to feel like, you know, things that happen to them outside of their control, that other people around them in their workplace could understand that. I'm not sure that 2 weeks for a breakup is appropriate. Like, I feel like that. I don't know. I feel like if I had responsibilities at work or wherever, that, you know, I save that for my own time when I can be sad on my own time. But I don't know. There is a place for compassion. I just don't know how far that should extend. I think that having an in-office counselor or something like that, depending on the size of your business, is a good idea.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Things, you know, this I think it's it's fair to offer somebody some time off if you feel like they need it. But
how do you keep people from taking advantage of that?
Yeah, that's exactly. Well, I do think there's something to be said for if people, you retain employees, you retain your talent. So I think there's something to be, you have to judge the person that you're dealing with too. Is this somebody that's short term and is going to be a valuable asset later?
Yeah.
Maybe is not ever going to get their act together,
Yeah.
Or if they have frequent occurrences of the same type of situations, Yeah,
there's like a history of it.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings to mind, for me, mental illness and people that suffer severely with depression, and how far do you let them go in a position of responsibility at a business? How much compassion do you extend? I don't know.
That's a good question. We, in my office, we've had a couple instances now of people who are dealing with, cancer and different things like that, and people can donate their time, and we've been real lenient on when they come back. We hold their job and just cover as much as we can, and don't hire somebody in their place. And it can become a burden on the rest of the employees, but you also have to recognize that we probably wouldn't have as much compassion with somebody who just had a breakup. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot imagine us donating time toward that,
Right.
And most companies have a policy in place that says, you have this much leave time, and that's it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What happens then with that employee? Too much leave time and they run out, but then they still get sick. Becomes a real issue, I know, around here. Like, okay, this one year you can say, okay, this extenuating circumstance happened. People running over every year.
Yeah. Oh, I think there's also a difference in most of us can't really afford to have unpaid leave. So at some point it's unpaid leave, and they have to decide whether or not they need a paycheck,
Yeah, for me, it's the burden on the rest of the staff that becomes the real issue, because when you're office, well, and I can't imagine any company has that many employees that, you wouldn't hire someone if you didn't have a job for them that needed doing,
Right. Yeah.
Right. We just don't operate at that high a level of staff, and it's difficult when somebody and always the same people at the end of the year. Oh, I can't come in, and you're like, well, I'd like to stay home. I've had this cough all semester.
Yeah.
But here I am at work.
Well, and I think it's interesting too. Everybody has different ideas of responsibility. Some people feel like if if you're sad, you shouldn't have to come in. Some people might feel like if you're on your deathbed, you have to do. You got to go in. And I think that goes for being sick as well. A lot of times when in our company, we would have people come in and they needed to be in the hospital. They were like dying, but they felt this need to be at work. And other people, would have a stuffy nose and stay home for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's hard to decide, and that's just, physical illness, but that's hard to put that on mental illness or on a depression or that kind of thing. How much leeway do you give there too?
That kind of goes into, I'm sorry, you can go.
Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was going to say that kind of goes into a thought I've been having, like, if somebody's deferred or has a situation like this, I don't know if it's practical, but I think it'd be a good idea for an HR representative to have an interview, like almost like they're hiring them, you know, every time. It, you know, especially if it's costly, where, you know, the company kind of understands where they're at personally, and they understand, you know, the needs of the company and what's going on. And so maybe some of these people can get a little bit of a reality check. You know, they can't just walk in and out the door whenever they please, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of these employees that I was just talking about, she's meeting with her today, and I just wanted to have a soft, want to write anything up. I didn't want to put anything in her file, but like this week she's been late 3 out of 4 days. Those days were over a half hour late. And I'm like, went through, and I just went back to July to figure out how often she's been late. And she's been late since July, 58 days.
What? Oh my gosh.
596 minutes.
Wow.
I'm like, are you? And yet she was not receptive at all to this conversation. I was just like, I just need to.
She just in denial.
I think I would have gotten fired a long time ago.
I don't have that authority, you know, but I mean, it's like in other respects, she's a great employee. She's a good asset to the office, but she's just not reliable. It's really discouraging because I'm the one that has to take the slack. I mean, one of the days that she was 30 minutes late, 2 other staff members call off because they were ill. If emergency happened, here trying to run the office all by myself until she showed up. I was so stressed. And I'm like, get this feedback that was like, me to get overtime. So what am I supposed to do? I'm like, well, if you show up when you're supposed to show up, when you're supposed to clock off, you won't end up with overtime. I'm like, it's really not that hard. You know, I was anticipating it being a lot more like, you're right, when you look at the overwhelming picture, this is way too excessive. I'm going to work on this. And it just did not go that way at all. Like no responsibility at all.
And that's probably why it'll never change. It won't change because she doesn't see a problem with it, you know?
Yeah, she's not taking responsibility for it.
It's not going so great.
Yeah.
The problem is now it's got to either escalate or, like you said, just accept that it's never going to change, which then means that everybody else is frustrated and angry to take that kind of situation.
Can you make her start time a half an hour later?
I offered to be, well, half an hour later wouldn't work, but I was like 15 minutes. Let's make your start time 8:15. Do that because she's afraid, she's short of money, and she's afraid, she's counting up, okay, that's 5 a week, that's an hour and 15 minutes I'm losing. Well, anyway, if she don't show up,
so is she
on it.
Is she getting paid for time that she's not there working then automatically?
No, it's when you get clock in, but then she'll do things like she'll stay late.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. She's
conveniently, she couldn't have made these phone calls. She has to do that. Yeah. But it's like, she's like, we're supposed to balance her. If she's getting overtime, is she supposed to leave Thursday afternoons because we need less staff then? It's going to have to leave early again. And I'm like, yeah, but I can that easier. The clock on a Monday morning when I've got all my phone lines ringing and, 10 patients at the window,
Make her start time earlier. Make her start time 7:30.
Yes.
Then she'll be there by 8.
Then she'll be there today.
Yeah, that's not, now you're thinking. But I don't know. I'm getting pushed into having to make a drastic decision.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That's tough. That's
awful.
Yeah. Well, anyway, enough about my personal staffing problems. This is the same girl who took 2 weeks off when she had a breakup too.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I don't envy you.
Yeah. So let's talk about work-home balance a little bit. Got an issue where that happened?
Well, I think this is just something that people, in the reading, it was, they were talking about commute time, and I think especially with mothers who are working, and maybe fathers, I don't want to discount them. I just happen to be a mother, so I understand it better. But there's it is hard. It's hard to work all day, and if your kids are sick and you're get a call and you got to go pick somebody up, or I mean, it's just it's a tough. Don't you work full-time, Shelly, right?
Yeah, I do.
So it
is hard.
Like you were talking about with your son and some of the challenges. So I had a boss that she actually passed away. She's one of those that she was at the office the day before she died. Serious. Anyway, she would her family, in order to see her, would have to come and have family home evening at the office. They would bring scripture study over to her on Sunday afternoons, and she was so dedicated to her job that she would spend all this time at the office, right? So love her to death, very dedicated to what she was doing. But I learned that I don't want that for my family. I want to be able to have a balance. I want my kids to be able to see me at home. I want to go home and make well, I don't really want to make dinner, but whatever. It's gonna happen anyway. Preferably somebody else would make it, but whatever.
Dominoes.
But the thing is I really think, and I look around at people with different jobs, and I've thought about leaving where I work, but I like the flexibility. What I have, I have to do my job, but I can set my own hours and I can work it out as long as I get done what I need to get done, and and I'm at meetings that need to happen. I just think there's definitely a bonus for flexibility. And Shelly, you wouldn't have that option because of the type of environment that you work in. But I work at a recreation office where most of my programs run at night, and so it's a lot of desk work and organization and programming and all those kinds of things that allow me flexibility. And so you can't put a price on that, Sorry, I yacked too much.
No, while you were talking about that, I was thinking that I actually have the flip side of that, where my husband was starting a business. We had a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and he was angry that he only had 20 hours in the day to work because he needed to sleep for at least 4 hours, and would get frustrated that he would have to stop working to do anything. There were many Thanksgivings that we didn't see him. Christmas Day was always off limits, and he was grouch all day.
Wow.
But other than that, birthdays he missed for years and years trying to build this business. And, we were really blessed by it. And we were able to make enough money that I didn't have to work. And it was great in those aspects. Oh, I froze for a sec, sorry. But on the flip side of that, where he wasn't around, I used to say I'm a married single mom. Like I took care of my kids and I took care of our home, and he worked, and that was it. And I think that he didn't have that home life balance worked out at all. And it might be easier maybe as women because we feel that pull to be at home. I don't know. But for him, it was really hard, and it was a lot of stress on our little tiny young family at the time. But
yeah.
Well, Benjamin, as our reigning man here at this council,
yeah.
How does work-home balance affect you?
Well, I'm still single, so I don't have an experience like that. But I think it is a tendency for men to really want to kind of sacrifice everything and work. Like, I don't know. I have the mentality, and a lot of men I know are on the side where we're we're going to come to work, even if something serious happened, like we're like injured, we're not going to avoid work or not come if we had a breakup or.
Yep.
And I'm not meaning to put down. I think it's a tendency for guys to kind of get, I don't know, tunnel vision, like we've been talking about.
I agree with you totally.
Not just,
yeah,
do you think that's healthy?
And even when the man is with his family, he might find himself, thinking about his work or his plans. I mean, I've done that around my own family, so.
I think there's a certain amount of like self-esteem that comes for a man that comes from how successful he is at work. Don't you think there's a pride or something that goes with that?
For sure, yeah. In our case, for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So how can we help women have better work-home balance and encourage men to have a better work and home balance?
I think a lot of that comes with staffing. Like you're dealing with, whether you're short-staffed when somebody doesn't come in. I think we have to look and see if there's somebody spending hours at the office that because there's just so much to do. We need to recognize that and see what it would take to bring on another worker, or make people recognize that maybe this doesn't have to be done right now. It can be done on tomorrow. I think people need to recognize I think we as managers need to see that people only have enough work that they can manage within their allotted time.
Right.
I think for men, I think there's two things you can do. I think that you can be really strict on not having overtime, or really encourage like a 50 to 60 hour work week. Because like y'all were saying, if there's a need in the company, and especially if he feels like there's duty, so really hard. And another one could be culture, where there's, I don't know, activity days provided by the company, or even if it's like a chart with pictures of somebody's family or their birthdays. Something simple like that can help have the company have a culture kind of centered on families, and that'll help a man too. So
what do you guys think about use it or lose it type vacation policies? I mean, on the one hand, I like them because they encourage people to take time off, but on the other hand, I feel like sometimes your most valuable employees start feeling like they're losing benefits because they can't bank vacation hours.
So on the HR side of that, I understand what they're coming from, because it's a liability to the company. So when you get audited, the auditor is looking for what outstanding things that the company would have to pay for. So if they had to pay somebody out for such and such and many vacation hours, like I get that side, I can see it. But I think it's frustrating because like I'm being harassed right now because I have a lot of vacation time, right? And I don't think it's fair. Like, do they want me to take basketball season off or baseball season off or flag football season off, or, you know what I mean? Like, what part of my job do they want me not to do? You know?
Right.
Can you get paid out for vacation time?
They don't pay out. Well, if I left, I could, but then you have a maximum amount that they want you to have because they don't want the liability of above and beyond that. So
could be some kind of, I don't know, but could there be some kind of duality to it where you are required to take, say, a week a year in vacation just for mental health or whatever, but then, you know, your second week or your third week could be paid out?
So here's my issue is they don't want to pay me overtime. And I'll be absolutely honest with you. The policies at my office are illegal. Okay. So, yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So I accrue comp time because they won't pay me overtime. Okay. So instead of taking vacation, I end up using my comp time. Does that make sense? So it's not because I'm not taking any time. I'm just not taking that time. You know? So
yeah, that's crazy.
Right.
Yeah, it's not because I don't take time. It's because I'm using the comp time they don't want me to accrue. So.
Right.
I guess when you decide to leave,
that is a bit of a catch-22.
I
guess before you leave,
it's a little bit doohickeys.
You can have like 2 months vacation.
Seriously, I could probably be paid out for 4 months between.
Oh man.
I know. But it's hard, and I don't think they should do the use it or lose it for that reason. You know, when you're putting up pressure on employees not to have overtime, and yet I'm working a ton of hours, and so I do take time, but I don't think I should have to lose my vacation over it.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
I really don't have experience with that. All the places I've worked and most of the people in their jobs I've heard of, they have a funny system where for every year you're at the company, you start out with 1 day and then you get 2. So if you've been there for 10 years, you're getting like 10 days off that year, and they do roll over. So there would be people who would take off like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I've even been around people who have extremes. There was one of our mechanics, and he was an avid duck hunter, and he, I guess, talked with the manager and worked it out where he was gone for like 3 or 4 months.
Wow.
Because he was dedicated to the entire duck season. He would travel and he'd buy a whole case of ammunition. A whole case, which is, I don't know, like,
yeah,
it's an awful lot. But there's got to be some way to make it so it's enticing to take the vacation days. But I know they would be encouraged to work ahead a little bit, and they would definitely have to warn when they took those long vacations. But
I don't think any of them want us to take 4 months at a time, but they're I think in my situation we need more people to do the job. That's why it takes so long. You know what I mean? That's why I'm getting all the overtime hours. And so I would be. So.
Well, the thing is, it's the company's problem. It's not your problem. So.
Yeah. But we also don't have an HR department, which is why we don't follow the laws.
Right.
You could get a lawsuit going.
Oh, it would be bad. If I didn't feel like this job works out really well for raising a family, I could really do some damage.
Wow.
Well, let's talk a little bit. I don't want to keep us too late if we don't have to stay. So let's briefly talk about relationships and workplace dating and how it impacts the office structure.
I was kind of surprised.
Other things that I thought. What?
Sorry. I said I was kind of surprised the same sex and then office relationships. What would the difference? I mean,
yeah, it's a different kind of relationship.
Awkward.
I mean, either way, it's going to just be disruptive. So I don't know why it would matter if it's a sex relationship or not.
I was thinking, same-sex relationships was more like challenges where you might some, I don't know, inner office conflict.
Yeah.
Differences
like
of opinion.
People or something.
Yeah, and how, people might injustices, whether or not they were intentional or not, or real discrimination could occur, I don't know.
So not necessarily same-sex relationship in office, like an office relationship.
Yeah, not necessarily in the office. I was thinking more of it as have a
discrimination,
openly gay employee and evangelical Christian working in the same office, for example.
Right.
How would that?
I feel like that shouldn't have any play in an office, but unless you're working in a church office where it's something that's discussed every day and they need to be clear about what they believe, I just don't think it should even be a thing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
I would like to believe that it wouldn't be, that people can behave and treat people well.
I'm sure it is a thing. Yeah, no, I'm sure it is a thing. I just don't think it should be. Yeah.
Right, that's true.
But I think that's the same with politics. I think whatever their beliefs are that are different it causes conflict. I mean, whether it's politics or something else. So
if you had that issue, because it is an issue of discrimination, or could be if someone was motivated to report it that way, it does put you into a different category. I know we had an employee here, but she was Black, was made in jest, not even thoroughly racial. It mixed up two actors. I thought they were the same person. One of my coworkers teased me about she used was, "Oh, Shelley doesn't know the difference of her Negroes."
Oh, shoot.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
This employee, she laughed and she was part of the conversation. She didn't show that she was offended, but she was very offended.
Yeah.
And
oh no.
Told her that she should report it.
Wow.
As a hostile work environment. So it became kind of a touchy subject then of how to handle this girl, because she clearly was, we clearly had to do something. So, because we couldn't be not handling it and, and have that happen, but she wasn't a great employee herself. So when we were thinking about, do we keep her on or not, we had to be very careful about documenting everything, and so that, she couldn't claim discrimination.
Right.
Because she'd already indicated that she was willing to go that route. So.
Wow.
The same-sex situation too. I thought you could find somebody who was highly sensitive and
it's hard.
Lawsuit.
And looking for it, yeah.
Yeah, there's a man that works in my office that's Black, and he's an older man. He's turned 70, and he's actually from Mississippi, by the way. He's a nice guy, and he's going to be the first one to tell jokes about his color. You know what I'm saying? Like, he talks about he and I, and he, he's the chocolate and I'm the vanilla. I'm like, he's just one of those things. You know what I mean? So there's some people that handle it really well. And he's the first one that's going to tell you a joke, a racial joke. Do you know what I'm saying?
Which I feel like is fine as long as you're not the first one.
I know, but the thing is
Right.
the thing is it's so funny because they can get away with saying whatever, but
Right.
we have to be really careful, you know. And I think it would be the same with same sex.
Right.
They can joke and laugh and whatever, but if you laugh with them, you might be in trouble.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's touchy. It's very touchy. And I love this guy, and he would never do anything. You know, he's great person, but sometimes when he does say jokes, everybody just stops and like they're like,
And looks at
do we laugh? Do we don't laugh?
Can I respond to that? You know? So
yeah.
Right, right.
No.
So let's talk about workplace dating. That was you, Tammy, right?
What's that?
Workplace dating and relationships and how that could impact your office.
I have no experience with workplace dating. I dated when I worked, but I didn't date a guy from my work.
Yeah.
I have to tell you this is terrible.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no.
So this is
everything seems to happen at your work.
I've been working at the same office for 25 years. Or anything can happen there. So this is not even two people working together. This is two men that are friends, great friends, right? And end up dating the same girl at the same time. Okay. Terrible. It was awful.
Like a soap opera.
You know what? The thing is they still won't speak to each other, and it's been 5 years. Created within our office. It created so much tension and strife, and the girl didn't even work for us, just the two men. And it's bad. It's still a bad situation, and they were best friends.
Oh no.
So I just have to say that even two guys in the same office should not date the same girl.
Are either of them with her still?
Neither of them are with her still, but why they still won't talk to each other is beyond me. I don't know. So
that's awful.
Yeah, it was bad. I can't imagine what it would be if you actually had two people dating each other in the office.
That would be hard.
Come up with, with all of the allegations of sexual abuse and sexual harassment. Some people are saying, well, every person I've ever dated, it was somebody I worked with. And I'm like, really? Really? Never happened. But then how those relationships could develop if you were both and you're working together 8 hours a day, and if you're similar, I mean, would want a policy against it, but I can see how it would disrupt things.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard to work with your spouse even, sorry, but sometimes
my dad had his own company and my mom wouldn't work for him. She said, I'd rather be married to him than be employed by him.
There you go. Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah. This is practice the same thing. My mom was his secretary for about 2 months and just said, nope.
Yeah.
There's got to be a separation.
My dad gave her something back and said that, she made a typo or something. She'd be all offended. And, of course, I worked for my dad for a lot of years. And I know he didn't always tell you, like, oh, honey, you forgot this one thing here. Remember we talked about it? It was like, hey, you need to put this in, and my mom was like, you can't talk to me that way.
Yeah.
Like, this is business. This is work.
Yep.
That's funny.
So I think it would be tough. I wouldn't.
Can't do it.
Plus, I'm not at all interested in the work things that my husband's interested in, and engineering company.
Even home improvement projects, we don't handle those together so well. He does his part, I do mine.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, Does anybody have any other issues that you think the workplace or are likely to in the near future that we haven't discussed? Maybe we should spend 5 or 10 minutes on doohickeys.
Okay.
So I saw Benjamin new worksheet set up, the new Google Docs. Sorry. Thing I know I saw, but I thought Brother Stanley sent an email saying we only had to have 2.
Yep.
This time, and shorter assignments. So I think we can eliminate that third problem and just go ahead.
I hadn't seen that yet. I sent that out a while back. So.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure because I just saw your email. Sorry.
You're good.
So do we want to divide up the 2 things that you had brought up were employees?
Yeah, and what was the other one? Said in the email, because he actually, I think somebody sent it. Was it Angela? No, Michelle, you sent it. Dismissals in workplace and society. Layoffs and dismissals in workplace and society.
Yep.
I thought that was what Benjamin had posted. Was that what Brother Stanley had said?
That's what Brother Stanley said too. So I'll take one of those. Let me look again.
Oh, right. You're right. Layoffs and dismissals and workplace and society.
Yeah. So I'll take the second one. I'll take workplace and society. If anybody else, I mean, we're gonna have to double up, I think, but.
Okay. I can do the terminations and layoffs.
Okay. I'm just writing our names next to them, just so we know.
Okay. Angela or Benjamin, do you have a theme?
I can take whatever.
I don't care either.
We'll have the introduction and the key issue as well.
Let me do the intro.
Okay. Benjamin, you want to do the key issue?
Yeah. What's left?
Key issue.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Do we have strong feelings on which should be our key issue? Or you want to just choose?
I don't, but I haven't really looked at it yet either, so.
I haven't either. I haven't put a lot of time in this one yet.
No.
When is it due? 2 weeks, right? No?
Like 1.
Can't be 2 weeks.
I think it's 1.
Yeah. 1 week.
I think it's next week.
Yeah. Next week is the last week.
The following week?
No, because the semester will be over, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think it's due next week.
The 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Which is Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let's try to get to it by the end of the weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we just go with what we feel like has we have the most fleshed out solutions.
Okay.
I'm also gonna put on here that Don should contribute wherever he can. Is that fair?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe he can help like polish things up.
All right.
Okay. Be the one to.
I didn't hear that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear it either.
I said who. Well, maybe I'm getting too far ahead. Maybe we should just. I said who's going to be the one to like polish it up and submit it, but maybe we're kind of more pulled together and we can decide then.
So are we meeting together next week or are we done? So should we meet together one more time?
Maybe one more time, just talk about doohickeys. I don't think we have another, I'm looking right now. We don't have another another case study.
So if it's due Wednesday, do you guys want to meet like Tuesday?
I could.
calendar. Next week is crazy.
If y'all want to, I don't know if we need to.
We might be able to just let's see if we can get stuff done on the Google document, and if we can't, maybe send an email and say that we need to meet again if anybody feels like they need to.
I will check my email more regularly because I don't get on this one that often. I'm sorry.
All right.
All right. Well, let's try to at least pull as much as we can together by Saturday.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
The solutions side of things and the intro side of things. And that way we have a good solid few days, because I'm sure in all of our classes.
Yeah.
Week with finals and everything. So I don't want to be in a situation where we because we're too late. So
yeah. Okay. So we're gonna each try to be done by Saturday night and just review it from there.
Yeah, I think, don't you think? And that way, because get it all finished off, it's
okay.
And then just
don't have it that close, we'll be in trouble.
Okay.
Yeah, if you need help or if you feel like we need to meet again, just stick it in the Google document or send an email or something. And I don't mind meeting again if we need to, but I think we should be able to do it through the Google document.
Okay.
Well, if we don't meet again, you guys are all awesome.
Great. This is really good. I appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, you guys have been my favorite team.
I'm in another one that is bad, so this has been really good.
That's good.
Yeah, I appreciate it too.
All right, Shelly, I'll send the link to everybody, but
okay.
You're gonna send the link.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I will do that.
Thanks.
All right. Goodbye.
Okay.
Merry
Christmas.
Merry Christmas. See ya.